Now we're going to hear from Erik
Hi,
Moore, medi Martian.
hi,
In
can you all
second,
hear me?
yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, thanks.
Okay, go right ahead. All right, Erik Moore is going to speak to us about using transactional distance theories to move from training to operations in virtual operations centers.
Okay, I realize that's kind of a mouthful, but I wanted to get out the technical description of where I was going with this in case any of you all are into education theory and designing instructional systems, which I think a bunch of you are. So maybe it's appropriate. So that's why I headed in that direction. I'm with Regis University, and we've designed several spaces in VR, myself and some other friends from different universities. I'll cover transactional distances too here in a little bit as we get into that path. This is the inside, and you can see that they'd go from at the bottom where they'd enter the building through a reception area, enter the computer rooms, and they'd wander all around looking for flaws. Let me show you a picture. Uh, can you hear me?
Oh, we can now. Yes, it cut out and then it cuts back in. It's very strange. Go ahead.
How is it right now? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, it's crystal clear right now.
Okay, so we had to degamify it a little bit, and we use this space partly to do that so that people are on task and they've had a little lecture inside Second Life, and then they're ready to go right to task to be a physical security auditor. So they would wander into the building and look for security flaws, risks of safety, and things like that. That's kind of how they operated. And this classroom space is also used by Adams 12 that actually supports the space in terms of they support this space in terms of doing classroom innovation design. So you can take a look at this space in World and see if you can find any security flaws, safety risks, or other things going on in here. Can anybody see anything a little bit inappropriate? Yes, the bucket of water, a water cooler. That's a good catch. Yeah, that should never be in a computer room. And let's see. Yes, there are a whole bunch. Okay. This is another type of space we designed, and this is a network operations center used for responding to network outages, getting people on task, lots of tough conversations happening, and sending people out and getting information back. You can see the big screens on the right, command consoles down below. So we started designing this kind of a space using some transactional distance theories, and picked those up when we were doing the original data center design. Vincent Nestler, one of my friends who's done some work in this area with me was a part of that project. This is a basic sense for Moore's transactional distance. You can see structure, dialogue, and autonomy. And the more autonomy you have, the less close you are to the person you're talking to. The more dialogue you have, the closer you are, and the more structure you have, the more distant you can be in terms of dealing with models and ideas. But if you have less structure, you have to be really close to the person. So we took that idea and ran with it. Since many of us had networking background, we took that idea and created a layered model of transactional distance. It's like your health and tiredness. Do you have the attention span? Can you get online, or are you just completely out that day? The bandwidth of being able to log in. Being in a virtual world space like this, you all are close and you're within chat distance for either the text or you're hearing me. But as you back off, you notice it gets a little bit soft. And that makes a big difference in terms of being able to interrupt people. That's why you build really expensive network operations centers and why NASA redesigned spaces, is because the communications relationships within that space have to be really enabled and carefully controlled. Here's an example of being in that space, and we have 3 people around a computer screen table. You can see the network operations going on in the background. We're 3 talking here in front. Somebody's on a cell phone, though. Maybe that's a little distant. But at the same time, you see other people in the back who may be overhearing us speak, maybe calmly, but what happens if we speak up? In this particular case, you can see the blue lines. That's us communicating. We have a communications thing going on, but we say, no, this is really urgent. Something has to happen here. And then the yellow lines are the interrupt lines. You can see where other people may overhear us and turn around. What is going on? And they flip something on the screen up ahead and they say, okay, everybody hears something happen in something that comes up on big screens. Because of that interrupt, we all turn around, and now we're all getting information from the same source all at once, very intuitively, just really relying on evolutionary communications techniques that are developed from long ago when, a loud noise, we all turn around, we wonder what it is, something like that going on because we're all in the same intuitive contextual space. That space becomes empowering in a way. The green lines represent that enablement of context that actually support the blue lines of communication, because now we all have a common contextual distance that is really close because we're all looking at the very same information as we talk. But some people are able to get out, focus on a discrete task. Notice that the gentleman on the left is in a video conference with me and in the real world. So he's got to keep focused, but he can continue to use that same context as an interrupt if it gets to the place that he really just has to jump in the other conversation. So this type of intuitive back and forth is a big part of designing these kinds of spaces, and why people will often spend millions of dollars and build bunkers where they put these things. So it's worth thinking about that a little bit in terms of, are we achieving the same kinds of relationships here in the virtual world? If you're designing a data center, okay, you need a real data center anyway to process your virtual world data center. But if you're designing a network operations center, you may have a functional network operations center. And in this way, the leadership, who may be focused on a particular topic, can also be interrupted. And then the whole building can be on a common context and really reduce the transactional distance and solve problems. Some problems we have yet to overcome include really getting out there and saying, do we know who these people are in the virtual world that we're talking to? Have we confirmed it? If this is a high risk regional situation, you need to have that taken care of as a part of the process. So we're looking at ways to do that. You can see the badge there, and it's the same one I'm wearing now, so it gives you a sense for who I am, at least by whatever authority that is. But of course, we know that login transactions, digital confirmations are really important in virtual worlds to achieve this kind of authenticity and guarantee of transactional partners. Oops. This is another virtual center that we use, and this one is based on the NORAD design. When I was working in photography, I went on a project with a historian called the American West in the Cold War, and we took a tour of NORAD and learned about how they do their communication strategies. This is the Prime Minister of Singapore, and he's getting into the VR space, also looking for what it can do. Well, when urgent emergency response things happen, I think we have to realize that sometimes we can't get people in the same room without great expense. And having a helicopter drop over or a drone just drop ship some equipment on somebody may be a better way to actually accomplish an organized emergency response and get the best people in the room with the least effort in the real world, but using virtual worlds. Using gear like this and either a generator or a solar panel, we can have high bandwidth up to a gigabit per second using satellites to respond to something like Katrina when the mayor and the police chief just cannot get next to each other. You can get them the resources that they can collaborate as if they're in the same room. Beyond that, even people at great distances can now be called upon to engage in operations for a variety of urgent things. And so this is just an example of me doing that one evening at a remote distance. You can see, even on the beach, I can still be in the data center. All right, so we're hoping to take this into VR space. You can see there in the example. And that will allow us to achieve full immersion into the organized and designed transactional space, and then see where we go from there. All right, that's it. Thanks for your patience. Also trying to handle this mic, but I hope you were able to hear most of it. Thanks very much.